Hello everyone and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal education content, and today's the day I earned that subscription. For today's story, we are dealing with Real Housewife herself, Miss Jen Shaw. Jen Shaw was involved in a scheme to defraud, in boiler room style, where she and a bunch of people got in a room and called a bunch of elderly people to sell them businesses they didn't need, and then sell them a bunch of services on those businesses they didn't need. They sold them dreams, but really it was just corruption. It was corruption all the way down. And Jen Shaw was busted in this scheme. So Real Housewife herself has just been sentenced to 6.5 years in this scheme to defraud the elderly out of their hard working money and scam them out of their golden years. So let's learn a little bit more about Miss Shaw. Let's get started with this. Former Real Housewife of Salt Lake City and current star of Real Housewife of Federal Penitentiary, Jen Shaw will be giving up the lavish lifestyle in exchange for a more modest one at Casa de Federal that helped make her a reality star in exchange for the prison cell for the next 6.5 years. Well, a little bit less than that with good time behavior, but still, she has to serve 85% of it. So, 5 years plus. So enjoy that. On Friday, the federal judge sentenced her to 78 months for spearheading a national telemarketing scheme that defrauded thousands of elderly people out of the life savings. The character you play, your client pays on Real Housewives is simply a character. Well, her character's not a very good person, so I'm not sure how far it is from the truth, to be honest. Said the judge, taking a shot at the reality TV show. I mean, why not, right? This is all your schadenfreude and royal desserts served up into one. So we're going to serve it hot and spicy over here on the federal bench. I'm loving it. Adding that the show involves characters who are given scripts, the judge added, people shouldn't confuse your client with the characters she plays. One is acting and the other one is reality. The judge stopped with an apparent pregnant pause before the punchline, which sparked laughter in the courtroom gallery. I'm loving it. I'm feeling it. I'm here for it. So Jen Shaw, basically what she did, she was part of a criminal conspiracy that what she would do is she would call elderly people at retirement homes, wherever. And she would say, hey, you can run an online business and get rich quick. Right? Now, these elderly people don't know nothing about the internet because, they're old and they're not familiar with the internet, but it sounds good. Hey, just free money, right? It's free money with a website and all that stuff. So they would sell them the business, and then they would sell them a whole bunch of things on the business, like business insurance and the website itself and all the rest of it, right? They'd sell them all these services, but there was really no business behind it all, right? It was just a fugazi. It was a fake. So they would cheat these clients out of a couple hundred or low 4 figures or something, which, not nothing, especially when you do it a couple thousand times over, and cheat these people out of hard-earned money. So that's basically was the scheme. And they were calling in a calling boiler room style from a place and calling these people, cold calling them with index cards, Glengarry Glen Ross style, and calling these people and scheming them out of money. So sounds like she's getting everything that's coming to her. Speaking first for the parties, the attorney said the proceedings were for innocent people who lost so much, but emphasized that none of the thousands of elderly victims ever spoke to Shaw directly. Yeah, be that as it may, she was a little bit higher up in the totem pole of this marketing scheme. So sure, she didn't talk to them directly, but she was the one that was coordinating the calls. She was the one that was deciding who would get called at what prices and coordinating everything between the various departments of this company. She was a mastermind of the operation. So yeah, the judge quickly interjected, pointing out that such a fact does not help Shaw because she was simply too high and too important to ever deal with the conspiracy firsthand. It cuts against you, says the judge. Well, that is the nature of a conspiracy. See, the nice thing about a conspiracy, or a bad thing about the conspiracy, if you're the criminal defendant, good if you're the government, bad if you're the defendant. The nature of conspiracies is that you're responsible for everything that happens as part of the conspiracy. And you don't even necessarily need to know that it's happening. In fact, you can even believe the exact opposite is happening. As long as someone in the conspiracy is doing a thing for the purpose of furthering the conspiracy, Everyone is responsible. This is the nature of the conspiracy. So I didn't call any victims. I didn't talk to any of them directly is a kind of a shit argument in a conspiracy because, well, you were part of the common core. You're part of the common operation. You got together with other people with a scheme and device in order to defraud these people out of the monies. So the fact that you didn't make a call, well, it shows your role in the organization, shows that you're too high and too important. You're the one giving directions. That's kind of the part of the problem. It doesn't really matter either way because the conspiracy, you can just eat it. This is a good way. This is a good reason not to do conspiracies, incidentally. As the attorney repeatedly asserted the extent to which Shaw regretted her actions and would never forgive herself. Yeah, I bet she forgives herself real fast in a couple of years when she's on Real Housewives again. I bet she tells all about it and she has no remorse. The judge again asked her to cut her off again to ask whether Shaw was still selling Justice for Jen merchandise. Lol. So apparently she was selling merchandise to help with defraying her cause. The attorney said the sales had stopped and promised that all the proceeds would be given to Shaw victims, though none of the funds had not yet been turned over. No problem. I'm sure as part of the restitution order the judge will do, we will happily seize those funds. So not so much that you will turn the funds over as we will take them from you. Prosecutors assert that far from being contrite, Shaw spent months mocking the charges against her. She sure did, publicly saying such things as, the only thing I'm guilty of is being shamazing. Wow, really? She said shamazing? Are we sure we can't give her extra time for that? I mean, I know the First Amendment and all, but damn. It was only when the government provided Shaw's attorney with devastating evidence showing Klein's guilt that Shaw's attitude changed. Yeah, it was a last-minute plea deal. I think it was literally the day of trial or the day before trial the plea deal made. They were walking into the courthouse, if not literally, figuratively, because it was that day or the day before. And, you know, to be fair, many a criminal settlement and many a civil settlement for that matter are made on the courthouse steps. You know, when it's finally getting real and everyone is walking to the door, many a last minute settlement has been made. So she is about ready to walk into the door and she's like, this case against me is really, really bad. Maybe I should settle. Yeah, well, all that Justice for Jen merchandise, I guess that was part of the scam too. Lol. The government said that throughout its investigation into the fraud scheme, they were unable to identify anyone who had more power than Shaw. So maybe not so much with the innocent doe-eye thing as the leader of the organization, the boss, the mafioso in charge of it all, and part of your racketeering organization. In case you're wondering, is this a RICO? Yes, this would be a RICO. Corrupt criminal organization for the purposes of engaging in multiple different racketeering related frauds. So yes, this would have been a RICO. Things were not looking great. They also argued that Shaw's claims that she was consciously avoiding learning about the damage she was doing was undercut by numerous steps she took in evading law enforcement, which included moving her business overseas, using bank accounts in other people's names, switching to cash only, and lying to investigators. Yeah, it shows a lot of consciousness of guilt. And also, even if it were true that she was consciously trying to avoid knowing, that's what we call willful blindness. See, that doesn't work. When you know what you don't know, the law considers that the same as knowing, because otherwise that'd be really, really dumb, right? If you are consciously, deliberately choosing to hide the information from you so that you don't learn it, well, the reason that you're doing that is because you know what the information would be, right? Or you have a really, really good idea. So it's like, I'm not going to learn this thing so that I'm not guilty. That doesn't work. That's willful blindness. That's knowledge. That's intent. All these other things show intent, consciousness of guilt. Yeah. According to prosecutor, Shaw also set herself apart from other defendants involved in the case with her work ethic. She works? Saying it was remarkable how quickly she worked her way up to the top of the hierarchy. She worked hard to defraud people, the prosecutor said. Well, I guess when she's really, really motivated, maybe she can find that work ethic somewhere inside. I didn't know that she had it in her. Wow. As she was during her guilty plea hearing, Shaw struck a note of contrition when she addressed the court for the sentencing. This is a crucible moment for me, Shaw said, remarking to her upbringing in the Pacific Islands. Wow. Describing herself as deeply sorry for my actions hurting innocent people, Shaw vowed to repay her victims every cent. Yeah, I mean, not so much as you vow /pledge/donate. Lol. I mean, yeah, I pledge to make my victims whole. Here's how this works. The court orders restitution and just start seizing things because you're a convicted criminal and you owe the monies. So how about the court just goes and seizes the things, and those are my things now, and we're going to use them to repay the victims of your crimes as much as we can. Leave you destitute and penniless. She deserves it all. Shaw must also forfeit $6.5 million, 30 luxury items, and 78 counterfeit luxury items, and pay more than $6.6 million in restitution. See? I told you they'd order it all. So how about you give up $13 million in cash, plus 30 luxury items, plus 78 counterfeit luxury items? How about you just give that to the court? And those are the court's things now, yoink, not your things anymore. So yeah. The Manhattan U.S. attorney celebrated the verdict. With today's sentence, Jen Shaw finally faces the consequences of many years she spent targeting vulnerable elderly victims. The prosecutor wrote, "These individuals were lured in by false promises of financial security, but in reality, Shaw and her co-conspirators defrauded them out of savings and left them with nothing to show for it. This conviction and sentence demonstrates once again, we will continue to vigorously protect victims of financial fraud and hold them accountable to those who engage in fraudulent schemes." You know, it is nice to finally see one of these white-collar people really eat it. 6.5 years seems about appropriate, you know, given the scheme and everything, and the fact that we're seizing the monies and seizing all the property and taking away her stuff, and she has to pay everything back, plus interest, plus penalties, plus 6 years of her life. You know, it seems appropriate. It seems like an appropriate sanction. And a lot of these things, you know, with the rich and famous don't always pan out. But, you know, the U.S. attorney is usually a little bit better about this than local prosecutors or state prosecutors. Not to say that there aren't some strict prosecutors out there, but the U.S. attorney is a little bit less willing to be blinded by fame or fortune. And so it's nice to see that someone actually stuck it to her for once. Maybe she'll learn something. Probably not, but maybe, one can hope. When she pled guilty last year, Shaw admitted that the purported coaching services for the online business opportunities, so she was selling the business opportunities and the coaching services and the insurance and the websites and the, but they had little or no actual value because it's all a get-rich-quick scheme. Get rich for her mostly, but yeah. The judge's sentence falls roughly halfway between term recommendations by the government and defense. Prosecutors recommended a 10-year sentence. Defense attorneys have been seeking 3 years. Lol. Shaw was initially arrested in 2021 when Bravo was in the midst of taping its second season. Well, if they're still on 5 seasons from now, Jen Shaw can have a tell-all. It'll be great TV. Maybe they'll find a way to film her in the federal prison. That would be kind of funny. As long as she doesn't get paid for it, right? That'd be fine. On July the 11th, 2022, 1 week before she's scheduled to go to trial, Shaw pleaded guilty. So it was 1 week before. My memory was slightly faulty, but not by much. Right? I thought it was the day of or the day before. It was 1 week. Courthouse step settlements, man. She pled guilty to wire fraud conspiracy aimed at bilking elderly and vulnerable people out of millions. She also entered into a $6.5 million preliminary forfeiture order. "I agree with others to commit wire fraud," she said during the plea hearing. "Furthermore, while doing this, I knew many of my purchasers were over the age of 55. Incidentally, the particular vulnerability of them is a sentencing factor. So her admitting to that is a legally relevant thing because the elderly are considered, you know, particularly vulnerable. And she took advantage of that. So yeah. Shaw's sentencing hearing came at the end of the week in which her defense team and prosecutors sparred over a restraining order stemming from the alleged affair Shaw had with a woman's wife in 2019. Prosecutors suggest the woman's account of her interactions with Shaw belied her claim that she was a person of high moral character. Wow, that's an interesting thing to try to argue. That's a little like the pot calling the kettle very black. The Reality Star's attorney on Thursday hit back against government assertions, describing the following as nothing more than unreliable, salacious allegations with no place in federal court. Well, the judge has made their determination and doesn't seem to really be buying that, so there's that. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story of Jen Shaw, who's gotten 6.5 years. Now, as I said, she can serve 85% time with good behavior, so the federal system doesn't have parole. They abolished it long ago, but they can give good credit times, but she has to serve at least 85%. So she'll be in jail for the better part of the next 5 years and plus. And a lot of her money's been seized. And a lot of her assets has been seized. And stuff and things. Plus, if there's anything left, people can still sue her. You know, assuming that they haven't been made whole. You can't recover more than once, but, you know, they could always try if there's no victims out of her. So I don't imagine this will necessarily be the end of her legal troubles. But this is a good day for justice. It's a good day for the rest of us. It's a good day for the fans of the Real Housewives. They have something to look forward to in 6 seasons from now. At least for a moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.